Good morning. I think last session we discussed on the portfolio management and CAPM. I'm sure like you would have gone through the video as well as the tutorial which would have been circulated. If you have any doubts, as I mentioned earlier, you may take down all that, and when we meet physically sometime later, we can discuss those questions, or maybe another alternative way later. With that, you would have got some idea about beta, which is a measurement of systematic risk. I think last class we discussed on this measurement of systematic risk is the beta. So, how the company cash flow vary or the return vary according to the market change. So, we actually beta measures the specific company, how it reacts or how it changes its return or cash flow against the market return or market cash flow changes for a specific reason. So, you might see there is a cause which affects the market, which affects that specific company. It impacts both. So, if the company return or cash flow, we take return first place, return increase or drop by 10%. 10% drop due to some cause, the company return dropped by 10%. Same time, the entire market average return falls by 5%. 5%. Then what's your beta? Beta is against your company return change, how much your market return change. So which means it's 2 times. So we looked at last class, the beta is the measurement of systematic risk, which involves comparison between 2 things. One is the company return changes, the other one is market return changes. Market, when I say the entire stock market average return changes for same cause. Now even COVID-19 is a common cause which have disturbed the entire market as well as the company. But market return change and the company return change are not at the same level, same magnitude. You might see that company return changes at the 10% minus and the market return would have changed by 5%. So if that is the case, what is the beta of the specific company? That is 2 times. So similarly, we can calculate for all the company. I think we discussed that, and then we didn't discuss the portfolio's average beta. Portfolio average beta. If your company has invested in, say, 5 company shares or 5 investments, each company has specific risk. Each company has specific systematic risk. So what is your portfolio? The entire 5 companies' average risk is how much? So we discussed last class, maybe at the latter part of the tute, in example also we looked at how much is your average beta of your portfolio. So that is not the one company, the entire portfolio's riskiness. Okay? So keeping that in mind, we will continue today's session. But we are going to look at again the beta, the systematic riskiness or systematic risk measurement. The beta can be divided into asset and equity beta. Asset and equity beta. This is very important, especially when we are looking at our case study questions. We may have to calculate the cost of equity of a company in order to calculate your what you call cost of capital for future cash flow discounting, which anyway we will do. So in order to do that, we have to get the relevant cost of equity of that company. So how do you calculate the relevant cost of equity? In order to do that, you again need to find out the beta of that company. Because as you know, cost of equity can be calculated using CAPM model, what we discussed last class. So cost of equity, in other words, expected return. There are two ways, two names you can call it. Cost of equity or expected return. This is risk-free rate plus beta, average market return minus risk-free rate. So the important aspect we are talking is the beta. So this is the item or the value we have to calculate relevant to a specific company which we are going to invest or what we have owned as a shares. So beta is, again as I mentioned earlier, systematic risk measurement. So today what we are going to discuss at the beginning, the differentiation between asset beta and equity beta. So the asset beta is actually measurement of operational risk. Operational risk. In other words, business risk. Any company can have many risk types. Out of that, most of the risk could be falling under category of operational or business. If you are going to run a company, starting from the competition, your pricing issues, or your retaining employees, or recruiting talented employees, and liquidity, various things, all will fall under your operational risk or business risk. Or the regulation changes, so all that affect your company, objective being achieved, will be disturbed by this risk. So these are business risks generally. So asset beta measures the operational risk. Systematic risk. Now we are going to look at systematic risk in two. So the operational risk aspects is measured by asset. Okay. So you might take down a small note, right? Please take down. Asset beta is the riskiness measurement of operating leverage. And it measures the deviation between its future cash flows and those of the market. It measures the deviation between its future cash flows and those of the market. Full stop. Asset beta is the beta of a debt-free company. That means ungeared company. Asset beta is the beta of an ungeared company. If you take ungeared company, the beta what you have is only asset beta. The asset beta is there. That is the beta for that company which is ungeared. It's called unlevered beta. Full stop. Next paragraph. Equity beta is an indication of the systematic riskiness. Equity beta is an indication of the systematic riskiness attached to the ordinary shares, attached to the return on the ordinary shares, full stop. It equates to the asset beta of an ungeared company. It equates to the asset beta of an ungeared company, or adjusted upwards to reflect the extra riskiness of shares in a geared company. Full stop. So you would see the differentiation between asset beta and equity beta is this Equity beta measures actually operational risk and financial risk. Please take down. Actually, asset beta measures the operational risk or business risk. Equity beta measures operational risk and financial risk. So if you are having a company which is ungeared, you will have only asset beta. Even if you say I have equity beta, that equity beta is equal to asset beta. Please take down this. Ungeared company, your asset beta equals to equity beta. Ungeared company, because you don't have financial risk in ungeared company. You have no debt capital, no financial risk. So you have only asset beta which measures your operational risk. So please note what is this operational risk. How your market cash flows changes with your company cash flow changes in terms of operations. So as of you all know, every aspect or every risk will disturb operation cash flow of a company. So the operation cash flow will change because of a risk. Same time, market cash flow also change. Market means entire market average cash flows. So same aspect, as I mentioned earlier, similar cause. Now even today, the COVID-19 could have impacted your operational risk, operation cash flows. Your operation cash flow, what you have been getting, say 10 million a month, might have come down to 2 million. So your operation cash flow dropped by 80%. Same time, similar businesses of your nature, cash flows, the market cash flow also has dropped by maybe 50%. So the same risk or the cost, we are trying to measure how your operational cash flow changes for the company and the market. We compare both of them and say what is the asset beta. So asset beta is only up to the point of operational cash flow. As you all know, operational cash flow, after that what is the cash flow we are left with before arriving at your final cash flow? It's your financial cash flow. So operational cash flow impact is measured by asset beta. Then you have the financial cash flow, which is related to the loans that you have taken, debt capital. So that movement also you consider, where equity beta. So equity beta will measure both impact of operational risk and financial risk. Okay? So if it is an ungeared company, you don't have financial risk. So you have only operational risk. Since you have only operational risk, asset beta and equity beta of an ungeared company is equal. I believe that you are understanding that. Okay? So now the question comes, how do you calculate this? Asset beta, if the question gives you the asset beta, how do you calculate the equity beta? That means you need to find out what are the gearing levels of the company. By using the gearing levels of the company, we can calculate equity beta. Okay? I think you have been given that portfolio management tute what we discussed last class. On that tute, you might see that page number 29, we discussed last class gearing to ungearing beta, how do you calculate? Page number 29 has the formula. Which basically help you to calculate asset beta to equity beta or equity beta to asset beta. So if you are given in the question one of the variable, asset beta or equity beta, you can calculate the other variable in the question. So it's basically page number 29 of your portfolio management tute. You can use to calculate from asset beta to equity beta to asset beta. So it's actually the gearing level which disturbs or calculation impacted based on your gearing levels of the company. So please note, the asset beta measures the operational risk or business risk. Equity beta measures both together, operational risk and financial risk. Both impact is measured by this. Okay. So in our questions, case study questions, you would be asked to use WACC or cost of capital to discount your future cash flows. In order to do that, we have to find out the cost of equity. In arriving the cost of equity, you need a beta, relevant beta. So always remember the relevant beta is, if it is a geared company, it's the equity beta. It's the equity beta. So if the question had given you asset beta, we can calculate using that formula in page 29 of CAPM. You can calculate relevant cost of equity or the beta. From beta, we calculate cost of equity. So we will do that in the case study questions. For time being, understand and knowledge, this measures, asset beta measures the operational risk, equity beta measures both operational and financial risk. Okay? And other aspect of this operational risk, operational risk is common or equal in similar industry companies. Operational risk is similar or common in a similar industry company. If you take banks, all banks have similar operational risk. Similar operational risk. But equity beta, even in the same banking circle, not all banks will have the same equity beta. Why? Their gearing levels can be varying. That means their financial risk can be varying. So based on financial risk, your equity beta will vary. But if you are in the same industry, your operational risk is common for the industry companies. So please keep that in mind. Operational risk is actually measured by asset beta. Asset beta. So if you are talking about same industry companies, asset beta is equal. Same industry companies, asset beta is equal. If you are taking any manufacturing or any service company, which in the same industry, if you have 10 companies, asset beta of 10 companies could be equal. Why? Their operational risk is same. But financial risk can vary, because their gearing level will change the financial risk. If that changes, your equity beta will vary from one to the other. Okay? On the other aspect is, different industry company will have different operational risk. If it's a, say, bank, and if you are manufacturing of water bottle company operational risk and the bank operational risk are two different things. Therefore, the asset beta of a bank and asset beta of water bottle will be different. It can't be same. Okay, the asset beta. The operational risk measurement will be different to different industry. But same industry, all company falling in the same industry will have the same asset beta. Okay, keep that in mind. You may have capital structure tute, which we have discussed earlier. You can take your capital structure tute, and you can see there is a formula to calculate operating leverage. In your capital structure tute, we have gone through earlier. Since you are at home, you can access to all the tutes. Capital leverage, operational leverage, and the capital structure tute, page number 4. Page number 4. You have a formula which is operational leverage. That is contribution contribution divided by EBIT. And financial leverage is EBIT divided by profit before tax. EBIT divided by profit before tax. Same time, there is another formula to calculate operating leverage and financial leverage. You might see that operating leverage is again measurement of operational risk. Operating leverage is also measurement of operational risk. What we said, asset beta is measurement of operational risk. Similarly, operating leverage also measures operational risk. Please note, this again is another way of measurement of operational risk. Financial leverage is measurement of financial risk. This is a different perspective risk measurement, not asset beta or equity beta, which is also again measuring of risk. This is another way of measuring operational and financial risk. So this is called operating leverage, measurement of operational risk, contribution divided by EBIT of any company. Or another formula, percentage change in EBIT divided by percentage change in turnover. Percentage change in turnover and percentage change in EBIT. Financial leverage is another formula, percentage change in EPS divided by percentage change in EBIT. Please note your formulas. Percentage change in EPS divided by percentage change in EBIT. So actually we say degree of operating leverage, degree of financial leverage, which basically measures operational risk and financial risk. There are two formulas for each, contribution divided by EBIT or percentage change in EBIT divided by percentage change in turnover. So how much your EBIT, that is your operating profit, changes when your turnover changes by X percentage. If your turnover is changing by 10% and then your EBIT is changing by 20%, that means your degree of operating leverage is 2 times. 2 times. Similarly, the financial leverage, we can use this formula or percentage change in EPS divided by percentage change in EBIT. How your EPS changes for EBIT changes. So that's measuring the financial risk. So please take down this. Third one, it's actually combination of operating and financial leverage, degree of total leverage, degree of total leverage. That is degree of operating leverage multiplied by degree of financial leverage. Degree of operating leverage multiplied by degree of financial leverage. So if you are given degree of operating leverage 2 times and degree of financial leverage 1.5 times, your degree of total leverage is 3 times. So that is total riskiness of the company. Financial and operational, both risk together, we can take the DTL, degree of total leverage. You measure degree of operating leverage and you measure degree of financial leverage, multiply both, you get DTL. Or same DTL, another formula, percentage change in EPS divided by percentage change in turnover. This is actually deriving from these two formula. Degree of operating leverage is turnover and EBIT relationship. Financial leverage is EPIT and EPS relationship. Total leverage is turnover change and EPS change. By changing X percentage in turnover, how much you expect your EPS to change? EPS to change. Okay. So these are all formulas. Can you please take down? So you have operating leverage, that is percentage change in EBIT divided by percentage change in turnover. Financial leverage, which measures financial risk. EBIT and EPS relationship. Third, you have DTL, that is total leverage, percentage change in EPS and percentage change in turnover. Okay. Say example. Please take an example. So if you say an example, X companies turnover, say 100 million rupees. Companies turnover 100 million rupees, and degree of operating leverage is 2 times, and degree of financial leverage is 1.5 times, and the company's present earning per share is 15 rupees. Earning per share 15 rupees. If company expects 20% increase in turnover, what is the new or revised earning per share? Can you please take down the example? The company's turnover is 100 million. That is presently the company turnover is 100 million. Degree of operating leverage, which measures the operational risk of the company, 2 times. Degree of financial leverage is 1.5 times. Present EPS, 100 million turnover company, present EPS 15 rupees. If the company expects, maybe due to more demand in the market, or new markets you are getting to, or new product you have introduced, some reason you are trying to do, that will have an impact in your turnover, positive impact in your turnover, 20%. So your turnover is going to go up from 100 million to 20% more, that is 120 million. If that's going to change, the turnover is going to change by 20% positively, what is the new after turnover change? What is your revised earning per share? So how do you calculate? So if you see the degree of operating leverage 2 times, degree of financial leverage 1.5. So degree of total leverage, what is the total risk measurement of this company? Total risk measurement of the company, 2 times into 1.5, 3 times. Total risk measurement, operational, financial, both risk measurement together, 3 times. If that is known to us, we looked at there is a formula, degree of total leverage can be equal to percentage change in EPS divided by percentage change in turnover, which you looked at earlier, the example or the formula. Percentage change in turnover, percentage change in EPS. Since we know the degree of total leverage is 3 times, turnover change, we said 20% increase. 20% increase. What's the earning per share increase? So if it is Y, how much is your Y going to be? Y going to be 60%. So Y is the earning per share percentage change. Earning per share percentage change. What's your revised earning per share or new earning per share? Revised earning per share. Earlier earning per share is how much? 15 rupees. 15 rupees, and it will go up by 60%, that means another 60%, which is how much? So your new earning per share is 24 rupees. New earning per share is 24 rupees. So this is the way of computing based on these leverage relationships. But conceptually what you have to be knowing, operational leverage measures operational risk, financial leverage measures financial risk. Total leverage measures entire operational and financial risk. So this is one way of calculating risk measurements or calculating the risk. What we looked at the beginning, asset beta and equity beta, that is another way of calculating your risk measurement. So there are 2 ways we can calculate, depends on the question you are given. You can calculate your risk measurement using either beta-based calculation or based on leverage calculation. So keep that in mind. So what we have to be knowledgeable, say furniture manufacturing company. Furniture manufacturing company. You might see there are 10 or 20 companies in one area, say Moratuwa, you might have many furniture manufacturing companies. So all these furniture manufacturing company or businesses, what risk is common? What risk is common? It's not the total risk. It's not financial risk. What is common? The operational risk. So please note, any industry, it can be any industry, manufacturing of furniture, manufacturing of rubber products, manufacturing of food products, manufacturing ice cream, all the companies in the specific businesses will have common risk. What common risk? That's the operational risk. The operational risk of the same industry companies are equal. Operational risk. Therefore, your asset beta is equal. Therefore, the asset beta is equal. But this asset beta measures your operational risk. Equity beta measures operational and financial risk. Equity beta measures operational and financial risk both together. Therefore, equity beta will be different from company to company. Why? Even if it is same industry company, all furniture manufacturing companies, asset beta could be equal, not the equity beta. Why? Those furniture manufacturing companies can have different gearing levels. Some company would have got 40% gearing, some company could have got 80% gearing, somebody may be ungeared companies. So their gearing levels different will impact the financial risk. In that case, their equity beta is not the same for all companies. But asset beta is common for all the companies. Same industry company. Okay? I am repeating that because this is something we need to be very clear, because the case study question, you will be given a similar company information. Most of the time similar company information. Apart from the case study company, similar company information. So we had to use the similar company beta and convert that into our company. That's why I said page 29 of your portfolio management tune, that formula which basically gives you the conversion from equity beta to asset beta to equity beta. So if you are given in a question asset beta of an industry, use that beta and calculate the equity beta of a relevant company. Okay. So I believe with that area is done. When it comes to the past paper question, we will go into detail of some of the things. I'm sure if you take the syllabus, we have gone through a lot of areas. I believe that you have by now, with the excess free time, you would have gone through most of the areas. And your study pack. Your study pack, from the beginning I have been telling, you need to go through the study pack in detail of each area, which will definitely give you a good material knowledge, in the sense of conceptual knowledge, with a lot of notes. Right? Comparatively, I may give a limited notes in the class, but you have a lot of understanding thing in the what you call study pack. So please go through the study pack for all the areas that you have covered up to now. Right? All the areas we have covered now. You can go through the study pack and go through and understand whether we are clear in that area. If you have doubts, please make sure that you take down those questions, and when we meet up next, physically, we can sort out, or maybe alternative way, which if the time permits, in the video levels. Okay, so I am again repeating that study pack thing. You have to go through the study pack in detail, because that is a very good material. Comparatively, it's very good material. You can go through in each and every area what we have discussed in the class. Go through those areas and you will see most of the things what you discussed is there. Maybe you have a lot of additional exercises and explanations are given. That's good. That's good. So with that, we move on to the one of the important area, foreign exchange risk. Foreign currency risk or foreign exchange risk. Okay. So we will be taking that new area, and this is actually a important area from your syllabus, mainly because this is key aspects of risk management from the syllabus as given importance. Because as we have talked earlier, if you take risk of any company, various and varieties of risk you will have. Each aspect you will see there is a risk involved. So the risk definitions, commonly what you want to understand is, if you have objectives, everybody and every company has objectives, anything which is going to disturb your objective is actually the risk. Anything which is going to disturb your objective being achieved, is actually risk. Right? So you might see different definitions in different textbooks, but what we are trying to really learn here, we have planned something which is going to disturb my plan being achieved. What is that? That's risk. Right? I'm sure like in Sri Lanka or world over, all the company had enough work done on the plans and budgets and forecast. Everybody done. January 1st, 2020, when we started, every company in the world had a plan. But all the companies today will not achieve those targets. Can't achieve those targets. They would have a revenue target, they would have a profit target, various targets, objectives. All these objectives have not been achieved today. Today's context not been achieved up to now. Why? Simple reason, something has come and disturbed our objective being achieved. What is the something? That's the COVID-19. So all of us know that anything which disturbs your objective being achieved is actually risk. So you may not say the word risk at the beginning, but there are enough students who would have thought, okay, I have finished my A-level, especially London O-level, A-level people, or people any other exams, even chartered, you all know the exams, early exams have been postponed, March exams, right? So the exams are not even over. So people are forecasted and finishing the targets, then and there and moving. In March I finished like that, they have a plan. Those plans have been what is the disturbance? It's the risk. So please note, anything which disturbs your objectives in a company, corporate world, anything which disturbs your objective being achieved, it's called risk. So this risk has various types. Various types. Earlier also I mentioned, you have enough risk. Maybe you can put into two different baskets and say this risk, operational risk and financial. But if you really go into various risks, you will see. Companies have market risk, liquidity risk, reputation risk, compliance risk, and your operational specifically risk and financial risk. You will see that various risks you can put. Strategic risk, and you can still say what we are discussing today going to be exchange rate risk. Okay, even going into detail, each and every risk you can subtypes of or sub risk. So all these can disturb your objective being achieved. I can remember earlier I gave you an exam of homework where I said you select your known company wherever you are working or place where you do audits or you are familiar with the company. You take that company and identify the objectives. First identify the objectives. What is the objective for a short period? 1 year or maximum 2 years, you just look at what the objectives. They have enough objectives. Put the risk objectives. Then see what are the things which is going to disturb that objectives. So you will realize there are various risks. The company will feel or face that will not allow you to achieve your objective. So you can see like this kind of thing, you have different industry have different risks. But conceptually these are the categorical risk. Under that you will go in detail, you will find out new risk. So these risks you list down. So what I wanted you, identify a company, identify the objectives, identify the risk faced by the company in achieving that objective. So you can have enough risk. And you can see the likelihood of the risk. Not all the risks are likely. Some risk will happen, some risk will not happen. So you could take likelihood, one column. Another column, risk management. What is the risk management plan, management technique company is planning to reduce the risk? So each company will have enough objectives and each and every enough risk facing the company, and then they will plan how to reduce that risk. Not that you don't plan anything and just wait. You will have enough plans. Even this COVID risk, true that it was not planned, but immediately after this, people started the alternative plans. They have got a risk management now. How to do this? Even when Monday Colombo starts working again, every company knows what is the risk management they should do. How to do this? It may be limited number of people, limited operations. Still, how do we go forward? So that's the risk management. So you will have to identify, again I repeat, since I have gone to that area, you will have the objective in one column. Then you will have risk. For one objective, you will have sometime many risk. Many risk. Then you will have likelihood. Likelihood. That is chance of happening. Maybe that risk chance is high, low, sometimes remote. Sometimes remote. Tsunami risk. Tsunami risk. Even though it's a risk, likelihood, very, very rare. So you can say remote. Then you have risk management. Risk management. What is your plan to reduce the risk. You can have the risk management. So this is basically the kind of homework I wanted you to do at the beginning, not now, at the beginning of a class, right? I think maybe third, fourth class I would have told this. So now we are coming closer to our syllabus. Right now you need to have better knowledge of identifying objectives, risk faced by the company, and likelihood and management, risk management. So various risk management you can take for each and every risk. And write down this. That will give you a broad idea about a business, a case, what are the risks, how risk management works. Okay? That's basically something I want to tell again for you to take home, or in a sense like you need to do as homework and complete. Okay? So this is basically the table. It may come to 2-3 pages, but please do. Then your way of thinking about risk will vary. You will have to understand each and every company, your relevant company, and think what the risk the company faces. What are risks? So each and every risk, important one. You may have 1,000 risks, but we are talking about important one. And what risk available or you are going to face, and what are the management or risk management you are adopting to reduce those risks. Okay? On that risk aspect, one of the key risks, the syllabus given importance, considering the global village concepts or global village environment, we need to get ready. We need to get ready to face that risk and reduce that impact of the risk. So that risk is called foreign currency risk or foreign exchange risk. So this is actually mostly relevant because we are working in the global village. We are working in the global village. Now, good example is the COVID-19. If we were on our own, we are not related to any other country. We manufacture, we eat, we drink, we survive, we live a life, then there is no problem with any external factor affecting us. But all of us know that a virus which started from some part of the world have disturbed the entire world. So we all are exposed to various risks. One of the risks is foreign exchange risk. Foreign exchange risk. Very important, especially our country. We are net imports country, not export, net imports country. That means our imports are more than exports. So we have both exports and imports. That means we are depending on international trade. We have to import goods to consume. Similarly, we are exporting goods to earn money. So we are doing both. If we are exposed to that, as a country and companies, maybe individuals, we are exposed to that exchange rate risk. If I ask you, who are the people or what are the companies exposed to the exchange rate risk, exposed to exchange rate risk? Who are the companies or what are the companies which are exposed to the exchange rate risk? We'll take one by one. The company which are doing exports. Company which are doing imports. So especially the export-import companies are exposed to this exchange rate risk. They are worried about dollar appreciation or dollar depreciation. When you say Sri Lanka rupee 180 become 195, these two people are understanding what's happening. And they know some people gain, some people lose. So this is important for these two people. Exchange rate risk is very important to these people. Then you will have lenders and borrowers. Any borrowers and lenders who have done the transaction in foreign currency. If a company has borrowed loans in dollars or sterling pounds, If the company has borrowed money in sterling pound, dollars or Chinese currency, you are exposed to risk. Similarly, you have gone and given money to somebody outside Sri Lanka. If that is the case, again, this risk impact. Then investments. Investments. There are enough Sri Lankan companies that have invested elsewhere. Those companies are exposed to exchange rate risk. The investments have an impact of exchange rate. Investments have exposure of exchange rate. Then you see that tourism businesses who are dealing in foreign currency day-to-day basis, hotels, restaurants, money changers, gem merchants, various businesses who deal in foreign currency. Those businesses are disturbed by foreign currency movements, up and down. Then you will see even other businesses who have exposure to foreign currency. Exposure to foreign currency, other businesses. What are other businesses? Maybe you are importing machinery. Still you are exposed. You can't avoid. And maybe freight forwarding company. You are exposed. And I think maybe one important people are banks. Because banks do a lot of transactions, they do it in the. So banks are exposed to foreign currency risk. Because they buy and sell dollars or foreign currency, so they are exposed. So you will see the other business, even the other manufacturing company might be buying some of the goods from local market. They may be buying from local market, but local market people would have bought it from some other country. So you may be you are not a direct importer, but you are an indirect importer. Similarly, you are not a direct exporter, you are an indirect exporter. So indirect, exporter or importer. All are people getting affected. And further, government or government institutions. They are exposed. Sri Lanka government borrowed in foreign currency a lot. We have borrowed a lot. So all those borrowings are exposed are foreign currency risk. When the dollar appreciate or depreciate, you are concerned about it. Generally, Sri Lanka rupee depreciates against foreign currency, so we are negatively impacted. We come to that detail. Okay, so please note, exporters and importers are the main people. Lenders and borrowers, more than lenders, we are borrowers. Investments, true that we have invested elsewhere. Tourism business, which works on foreign currency. Other businesses, you can list down many small businesses who are also impacted directly, not directly, indirectly. Banks, definitely yes. Government or government institution. All these institutions are exposed to exchange rate risk. Apart from that, you and me as individuals are also affected. Why? We import most of the goods to Sri Lanka and consume. So when you consume that, dollar appreciates, Sri Lanka rupee depreciates, our import goods, value of import goods, so you and me also disturbed or impacted by the exchange rate. Okay? So keep in mind, these are the organizations who are exposed to exchange rate risk. The question comes, what is this risk? What is the risk we are talking? In exchange rate, what is the risk we are talking? Today, $1, say rupees 195. But all of you all know, before March 20th, before the was imposed in Sri Lanka, before March 20, or say before March $1 rupees 180. So we were here, and we are here now. What had happened? $1 182 earlier, 2 months back. Now $1 195. What had happened? To buy $1, Sri Lanka needs to pay, to buy $1, Sri Lanka needs to pay more. Now, Sri Lanka needs to pay more now, which means whose value has increased? Dollar or rupees? To pay $1 in March or before March, you pay 182 rupees. To buy the same dollar today, I have to pay 195 or more. Which means, which has value, which product value gone up? Dollar value or rupee value? Dollar value. So dollar value increased. Rupees value decreased. Dollar value increased, rupee value decreased. Technical terminology, dollar value increase means it is appreciated. Dollar appreciated, Sri Lanka rupee depreciated. Please note, dollar value increased, that means appreciated in value terms. Sri Lanka rupee decreased, that means it has depreciated in value terms. So to buy $1, we have to pay more rupees, that means Sri Lanka rupee's value has come down. Dollar value has gone up. Okay? So I believe that you are clear there. So all of us know now, in the global village environment, all of us are exposed to exchange rate. So the risk is adverse changes in exchange rate. What is the foreign currency risk? It is the risk of adverse change in exchange rate. If exchange rate is changing adversely, that means you are having the risk. Even though the change can be positive or negative, but we always give importance to a negative change. That disturbs most of us. But change is actually the risk. Change is the risk. Exchange rate change is the risk. But we will give importance to the adverse change because that is something going to disturb you, not the positive change. Positive change isn't a good thing. Negative change is a problem. So adverse change in exchange rate. If your salary is going to go up by 50% this month, then you are not going to worry about it. But if your salary is going to be dropped by 50% this month, you are disturbed. So a change of adverse nature, problem for us. Change of positive nature, not a problem for us. I believe that you are clear here. The risk is adverse changes. So adverse change in exchange rate is the exchange rate risk we are talking about. So we said, who are the people getting affected? List of people. So why the risk has to be managed? We know that risk is this is the risk we are talking. And who are the people getting affected? Why you need to manage? Why you need to manage? Why you have to manage the risk? Why need to manage? The risk has to be managed because there are a lot of impacts. What are the impacts your company will face? Possible impacts, your cost of purchase increases. Your Sri Lanka rupee depreciates, your cost of imports, cost of purchase increases. Are you worried about it? Yes. It's going to impact my profitability. The cost of purchase is increasing. My revenue can drop. Revenue could drop. We are talking about exports. Sometimes revenue could drop. Both will not happen at the same time, right? If the importer is losing money, exporter will not lose. Exporter gain. It's opposite direction. I'm just giving you the impact, general impact to the organization. Cost of purchase could go up sometimes, revenue can drop sometimes, and cost of your capital expenditure increases. A project, your import machineries, your expansion plans, your feasibility, all you have done with a X amount, and due to that 180 become 195, your cost of imports of capital expenditure increases. Cost of capital expenditure increases. Then, what have we talked here? Your finance cost of borrowing increases. Finance cost of borrowing. If you are borrowed in foreign currency borrowing, borrowed money in foreign currency, your cost of borrowing increases. When the exchange rate depreciates, your Sri Lanka rupee depreciates, you are not only paying interest cost, you are paying exchange losses also. So there is an impact of foreign currency borrowing. Then you will see that your profitability comes down. Cost of sales increase, finance cost goes up, then your profitability drops. Further, you might see cash flows drop. When your revenue drops or your cost goes up, your cash flow reduces. Your cost of capital of the company drops. Sorry, not drops, increase. Cost of capital increases. Then value of assets drop. I'm only talking about negative impact. Positive impact, you don't worry much. Negative impact, adverse things only we have to worry and we have to manage. Positive things you don't do much of managing. You can do, but still you are not bothered much. Value of assets. If you are invested in foreign currency, factories or businesses or instruments, financial instruments, the value can drop. Value of assets drop. And feasibility of project drops. I mentioned here, your cost of capital going up, your capital expenditure cost goes up, capital expenditure we looked at, right? Cost of capital goes up, capital expenditure increases, then your feasibility of the project drops. That means viable project become non-viable. Why? You have planned a capital expenditure X amount, that is gone up. And your cost of capital has gone up. That means even if you discount your cash flows, your value is sometimes positive NPV become negative NPV because of this. So these all are generally expected issues or risks or problems for the company because of exchange rate risk. Depends on the organization exposure. If you are only exporting 10% of your sales, or you are importing only 10% of your goods, only importing 10%, 90% locally produced, or locally you are buying, then your risk is lower. But a company which is importing 90%, they are exposed very much. Or a company which exports 90%, they are exposed very much. Garment industry. In Sri Lanka at this moment, garment industries are worst affected. Because they say that they have lost orders. Because they have been selling these goods to European, American companies. So America and Europe countries are at the moment in trouble. Compared to us, they are in very bad shape. So they are not able to buy. They are not able to buy the way they have been in the past. So the orders have dropped. So when the orders drop, the garment factories will have enough issues. So we need to understand that depends on the organization exposure to the exchange rate, you have impact. Not that everybody will have all the impacts, no. Only few companies will have significant impact, Some company will have a medium-sized impact, some company will have a little impact. So $195 doesn't mean that everyone will have the same problem. No. Export company will be sometimes beneficial. Some company will say, okay, tea exporters. Tea exporters will say, no, we have demand. There are people buying from various countries. So I can sell my goods to those countries and I am very much happy. And exchange rate, Sri Lanka rupee depreciating, I am getting benefit. So you need to understand that depends on the organization, nature of your organization and the exposure to the foreign currency, you are going to get affected. Not that everyone will have all these problems. Some company will have benefits, some company have serious negativenesses, serious issues, some company will have little issue. Worst scenario, please note, worst situation, company can become bankrupt. That is worst scenario. Not all the companies. Worst. The exchange rate is now 195, it is managed. Assume that 180 becomes 210. Serious increase. Sometime few companies will have a problem. Serious problem. Worst scenario. Then they have to close down the shops. So please get this point clear. These are the possible impact of exchange. I am not trying to show it as a bigger issue. It is an issue. Whether it's a bigger or smaller depends on your exposure. Not everybody. Now, as of you all know, today, in the world, Sri Lanka comparatively less affected by the risk in terms of casualties and issues. Right? Economy issue is everybody is having. But impact-wise, people affected, comparatively we are lower. So we should be feeling very good. Our health people and government have been doing a very good job and forces are doing a great job. So with that, the control has happened. So we are fine. Economically, we have a problem, definitely. But in terms of the human life, safety, we are better off, comparatively. But not all the countries. America is worst affected. America being we always say like America is the giant and king in the world, but they go through difficult times now. They are worst affected. So, same thing, exchange rate risk, there can be companies worst affected, there can be companies least affected. There can be companies medium level affected. So please get this point. You need to look at the company, specific company and see how much their exposure to exchange rate risk. If you are working for a trading company, buying and selling, locally buying, locally selling, you may not be disturbed very much, right? You are not directly affected. You may be indirectly, but not directly. And you are buying vegetables and selling, vegetable buying and selling, you may not be affected, right? Depends on the industry. But if you are importing goods, exporting goods, you are severely affected, right? That was again what percentage. So keep that in mind. I'm just giving you this broad idea so that all of us be able to see any company and say, exchange rate, is it serious for you? Not serious for you. Otherwise, $195, some people will say, okay, so what? Why should you worry about it? It is a problem for some companies very much. They can't sleep. The bosses can't sleep. They are thinking what to do now. They can't make market out of it. They can't sell goods. They can't buy goods. So you need to get that point clear. So we have now learned the exchange rate risk. Right? We have learned the exchange rate risk is what? And who are the people getting affected? And what is the impact to organize? And why it's so serious? Why it's so serious? We have answered those couple of questions. Now we go into the little bit of technicality. Direct quote indirect quote. I believe that you would be emailed a TUT, foreign currency risk TUT, today. Right? You will be sent a TUT. Today you will be getting it. So, what is this direct quote or indirect quote? When we are looking at that quotation, first you will ask the question, what is exchange rate? Exchange rate. What is exchange rate? Exchange rate is actually value of a unit of currency. Value of a unit of currency given in another currency. It's in the TUT, page number 2. Page number 2 of the TUT, exchange rate risk TUT, which I believe today it will be emailed to you. So you could look at that TUT, page number 2. Exchange rate is the value of a unit of currency given in another currency. Or, my simple understanding, it's the price of a unit of currency. When you talk about what is the price of dollar, with dollar also you have to buy, it's a product. Yeah, I'm buying dollars. Some people say like you go and buy dollars. Like potato, onions you buy, you buy dollars. So what is the price of dollar? That's my understanding of exchange rate. What is the price of a unit of a currency? It can be dollar, it can be sterling pound, it can be Indian rupee, it can be Chinese currency. Any of the currencies, one unit, how much? That is the exchange rate. Otherwise, go by the right definition, value of a unit of a currency given in another currency. So you can see that $1 equals 195 rupees. So that's exchange rate. That's exchange rate. You are giving one currency value in other currency. $1 equals to rupees 195. So unit of a currency, one unit of a currency given in another currency. Two currencies are involved. One currency value is given in another currency. If that is given like that, it's called exchange rate. Exchange rate. So one unit of currency given in another currency is called exchange rate. So this is basically just understanding of exchange rate. Then we have direct quote, indirect quote. What is direct quote? How much domestic currency to be given for one unit of foreign currency? How much domestic currency to be given for one unit of foreign currency? So to buy one unit of foreign currency, how many domestic currency you have to give? If you are giving that, it is called direct quote. Page number 7. Page number 7 have the definition. Direct quotation equals to how much domestic currency to be given for one unit of foreign currency. In Sri Lanka, we use direct quotation. So $1 equals to 195 rupees. How much domestic currency? Domestic is Sri Lanka rupee. 195 to be given for one unit of foreign currency. To buy one unit of foreign currency, we are giving 195 rupees. This is direct quote in Sri Lanka. So what is direct quote system? You are giving one unit of foreign currency equals to how many local currency? It can be any currency, say 1 Indian rupees equals to Sri Lankan rupee is 2 rupee and 51. To buy 1 Indian rupee, you have to pay 2 rupee and 51. So foreign currency, 1 unit to be buy or bought, how many domestic currency we are giving? This is the direct quotation system. In Sri Lanka, we follow direct quote system. If you read papers or news, you will see always 1 unit of foreign currency is given to how many local currency. 1 unit of foreign currency is given to how many local currency. This is the direct quote system. What is indirect quote? Indirect quote is 1 unit of local or domestic currency, 1 unit of domestic currency is given in terms of units of foreign currency. 1 unit of domestic currency is given in terms of units of foreign currency. In UK they follow indirect quote. So what they say, 1 sterling pound equals to, for example, rupees, whatever, 220. In UK, what they say, 1 sterling pound. In UK, sterling pound is their currency. Their local currency, domestic currency, is equals to how many foreign currency? This is in UK, they give this. So this is the indirect quote. In Sri Lanka, we say to buy 1 unit of foreign currency, how much local currency we have to give? To buy 1 unit of foreign currency, how many local currency we have to give? In UK, they say 1 unit of local currency, that is sterling pound, equals to how many foreign currency. So this is indirect quotation. This is direct quote. This is direct quote. Number 7 have the definition for your understanding. You need to know that in exam, the examiner will give you direct quote or indirect quote, depends on the example. An example can be a local context question or completely a different nation, maybe Zambia or South Africa or maybe some country which you not heard or very much know of. So you will see that the example could be given from any angle. So when you're given, what you are going to do? So you have to find out whether it's a direct quote or indirect quote. So we may not go into that detail to find out whether direct quote or indirect quote. Because you can't memorize things. But there is a logical way of doing this. Right? In Sri Lanka, direct quote, no question about it. UK, indirect quote, no question about it. But there are enough countries which we may not know whether they use direct quote or indirect quote. Right? So if the examiner gives you the quotations, you may confuse yourself. So there is an alternative way. You take page number 9, example is given, page number 9, an example is given, right? Where it's given, for example, it says a company buys goods from a country. The example, page number 9, you have the example, you can look at it, right? They are given you the values. For example, if I say, if they have given you $1 equals to 189 to 195. Okay, if you are given 189 to 195, $1, what is this? Not one rate, 2 rates. So you may know one is buying rate, other one is selling rate. One is buying rate, other one is selling rate. So which is buying rate, which is selling rate? In Sri Lanka, if you take Sri Lanka, direct quote system, $1 equals to 189 to 195 in Sri Lanka, 189 to 195. So what is the buying rate, what is the selling rate? If you are a customer who goes to bank and wants buying dollars. Customers who buy the dollars. When the customer is buying dollars from the bank, bank is selling the dollars. When the customer buys the dollar, bank is selling the dollar. So you need to know that one person buying, other person is selling. This rate is given from bank's point of view. The quotation is given from the bank's point of view. That means buying and selling rates of the bank. Please think, bank is buying and selling dollar. Like potato, onion, sugar, bank is buying and selling those items. If the bank is buying dollars, bank will be buying at higher value or lower value. Say potato, if you are buying, you are a trader. You buy potato, sell potato. You will buy the potato at higher price, sell the potato at higher price. Which one? Buy at lower price, sell at higher price. Same thinking applies to bank. Bank buy the dollar and sell the dollars. So bank will have to buy at higher value, lower value. So 189 is the buying rate, 195 is the selling. So bank is buying and selling dollars, bank buy at lower rate, sell at higher rate. If you are a customer is what? Selling the dollars at lower rate, customer is buying the dollar at 195. If you and me want to buy dollar tomorrow, at what price you have to pay? 195. Our customer's buying rate is 195. But bank's selling rate is 195. Bank's buying rate is 189. When the bank is buying, we are selling. Opposite. So this is the buying rate and selling rate. So please note, in direct quotation, direct quote, this is the buying rate, this is the selling rate. Direct quote. Because bank always will buy at lower rate, sell at higher rate. So in direct quote system, lower price is buying rate, bank's buying rate, 195 is the bank's selling rate. But if it is an indirect quote system, maybe another country, whatever the country it could be, say some foreign country which have dollar, say Zimbabwe dollars, for example. They follow indirect quote. So 1 Zimbabwe dollar equals to rupees 35 to 40. If we had Zimbabwe dollar 35 to 40 indirect quote, their local currency, 1 unit of local currency equals to this. So you may not be able to go on the same principle that we looked at here. Lower rate is buying rate, higher rate is selling rate. In the indirect quote system, actually it's opposite. This is the selling rate, this is the buying rate. So keep in mind, in the indirect quote system, lower rate is selling rate of the bank. Again, bank. All we talk from bank's point. Bank selling rate, bank's buying rate. Indirect quote system. Direct quote system, lower rate is buying rate, higher amount is selling rate. Banks buying and banks selling. Here, indirect quote system, lower rate is selling rate, higher rate is buying rate. This is something you can memorize if you know what is direct quote, what is indirect quote of countries. You don't know all the countries direct quote and indirect quote. Which country is going on direct quote system, which currency is going on indirect quote system. Because not all countries are on direct, not all countries are indirect. Some country direct, some country indirect. So how do I know this? That's why I said this is the basic knowledge you can carry if you know whether it's direct or indirect quote. In Sri Lanka, no worry. This is the low rate, is buying rate of the bank. This is the selling rate. But unknown countries in a sense, we don't know whether the country is using direct quote system or indirect quote system, then you have a problem. You have a problem. So how do I do? You are not sure whether the country is using direct quote system or indirect quote system. That is why I said you need to go by a basic logic. Basic logic. That's example page number 9 as, you need to always remember bank is in business. First of all, we have to accept bank is in business. So bank buys and sells foreign currency. Banks buys and sells foreign currency. So when we say bank is in business and buying and selling foreign currency, after buying and selling, both together, after buying and selling, bank needs to make what? Profit. The bank is in business. Bank is not doing social service. Maybe they will do social service a percentage, but not the main business is not social service. Okay? So main business is to do business. So they buy foreign currency, sell foreign currency with the profit. So you need to get that logic clear. Whether it's Sri Lankan bank or American bank or any bank, every bank wants to make money. They buy, sell at a profit. Keep that in mind. So if you look at page number 9, the example, page number 9 example, you are being told Building Limited, a UK company, buys goods from Redland. Redland is a country, for example, which costs 100,000 Reds. Reds is a local currency. The goods are resold in UK for 32,000 sterling pound. At the time of the import purchase, the exchange rate for Reds against sterling 3.5650 3.5800. So what they are saying, the exchange rate is 3.5650, right? 3.5650 to 5800. So this basically the exchange rate given, and UK company imports 100,000 Reds. 100,000 Reds. This is a currency. UK company imports costing 100,000 Reds, and they are sold at sterling pound, 32,000 sterling pound. Selling at 32,000 sterling pound. Okay? Now the question is, the exchange rate given 3.5650, 3.5800 is the 1 sterling equals to Reds. 1 sterling pound equals to 3.50562, 3.58 Reds. This is the quotation. And the company which we are talking is where? In UK. UK, what is the quotation? We said indirect quote. Indirect quote. What is the meaning of indirect quote? 1 unit of local currency equal to number of units of foreign currency. In UK, local currency is sterling pound. 1 unit of sterling pound equals to how many units of foreign currency? Reds is another currency. So you know that is an indirect quote. So simply if you look at, you need to find out what is the buying rate, what is the selling rate. As I mentioned earlier, you can memorize. Low rate is buying rate, higher rate is selling rate for a direct quote. Indirect quote, low rate is selling rate, higher rate is buying rate for indirect quote. You can memorize. But in the case of a country where we don't know whether it's a direct quote or indirect quote, we are not sure, you can't memorize like that. So how do I do that? You need to go on logic. Right? So we will first go by logic, then we will just look at the indirect quote also. UK company has imported 100,000 reds. It's a currency name. 100,000 reds. Imported goods worth 100,000 reds. They have imported. If that is the cost they have imported, what is the value of imports? Value of imports. What is the value of imports? In sterling pound. You have imported 100,000 reds, but sterling pounds, you are in UK, so what is the value of your imports? Your value of imports, 100,000, you can divide by one of this. You don't know what is buying rate, what is selling rate, you don't know still. You can divide by 3.5650 sterling pound, 100,000 divided by 3.5800. So you can divide by one, whatever rate. We don't know buying or selling. We can divide by this and divide by this. So you can get the numbers. You can get the numbers. When you divide this, you want the numbers. So when you divide, you get two values. 28,050 sterling pound, 27,932 sterling pound. Now you are a UK company, you have imported goods, and you have to pay in sterling pound. You have to pay in reds, you have to settle the reds. Your cost going to be 28,050 or 27,932. If you are an importer, when you buy reds, you have to buy reds to pay. When you are going to buy reds, you have to incur more sterling or less sterling. Always remember, bank is in the business of making profit. If the bank is buying and selling whatever the currency and making a profit, you need to pay, when you are buying that foreign currency, reds in this case, you have to pay more value or less value. You have to pay more value. You have to pay 28,050 to buy that, not 27,000. This is not the answer. You have to pay more value of sterling to buy the reds. So this is your purchasing value of reds. Purchasing value of reds, 28,050. This is what you have to pay sterling to buy the rates to settle the supplier. 28,050. So you can calculate the profits. What is your profits? 2850 minus 32, that's in your example. This is your purchasing value. Now tell me, what is the rate? 3.5650. This is the buying rate or selling rate. You are buying the rates at this rate. You as a customer buying at this rate. If your buying rate is this, banks, what rate? 5650 is your bank's selling rate. So please understand, indirect quote I mentioned at the beginning. Lower rate is selling rate, bank selling rate, higher rate is bank's buying rate. Okay, you can get that point of view. Bank's selling rate, bank's buying rate, indirect quote. But we didn't go on that basis. We went on a logical. These two rates are given. You calculate the value. When you want to buy dollar or rates, am I going to pay more value or less value? I have to pay more. Why? Bank is at a profit always. So I have to pay more value. So I have to pay 28,050, not 27,932. So I pay this and buy the rates to supplier settlement. Okay. So this is basically the comparison of direct indirect quote system. And when you are given a spread, this is called spread, two rates, buying and selling rate. How do I decide what is buying rate, what is selling rate? If I don't know the buying rate, selling rate, go on the logical way of doing so that you are convenient, you are sure you have done it rightly. Okay, otherwise you can't memorize. I think that's fine. Thank you.